Hi, I'm Elena here, and this is going to be really late, because, work and school and all that. So, here is my February wrap-up. I did pretty decently in February. I also think it's because I feel like I didn't really read that much in January, so I feel like it balanced out kind of well. So, let's get into it. I kind of tried to focus on romance books because February is like the month of Valentine's Day, but also since February is Black History Month, I was trying to focus on reading like contemporary romance books that had like black protagonists. There you go. So the first one that I'm going to talk about it really briefly because it was a DNF, and I read like 2/3 of this book for Contemporary-a-thon. This is called Stealing Kisses by Harmony Evans, and it wasn't like awful, but it was kind of just meh. And I knew that if I finished it, I would have ended up giving it probably like a 3 out of 5 stars, and I just didn't want to waste my time for something that I know I wouldn't reread. And I think that I was just keeping this also around to talk about it in this video, but afterwards I'm probably going to get rid of it. So this is about a woman who is kind of a life coach, and she gets assigned to this basketball player that is kind of, rambunctious, and like he needs to clean up his image, and it's about them sparking a romance together. And I liked parts of this. I liked what it was trying to do. I liked the plot. I think it would work like really good as like a rom-com movie, but I just didn't like being in their heads. I didn't care for either of the characters too much, and like it felt like whenever there was even a remote like relationship building scene where you're like, oh okay, they like have feelings for each other and I'm starting to get into them as a couple, it would just get turned sexual. Like there was moments that were sad or that should have been sad and stuff, and they were just thinking about like banging each other, and I couldn't do too much with this. So I DNF'd that about after 200-300 pages. Next one here is The Dot and the Line, A Romance in Lower Mathematics by Norton Juster. It's like this. I got this also from the free bin before, when I was still allowed to use the free bin. And this is basically, like it says, it's a romance book made with math problems and math, things. It's hard to explain, but it's like a picture book. And, like, here's some of the pages. That actually looks really cool. I think I give this a 4 out of 5 stars. It had a very strong, like, similar, The Giving Tree by Shel Silverstein vibe. And it is about this line that is in love with a dot. And it's basically this line trying to win this dot's affections over. And it was cute, and it was something that, like, it had such an underlying message, even though it's a picture book. That's why it kind of reminded me of The Giving Tree, and I feel like I would definitely read it again, and even though it's kind of like beat up and gross, I would definitely keep it, and I enjoyed it. 4 out of 5 stars. I would recommend it if you're looking for something quick, but that also kind of has layers to it, if that makes sense. The next book here I have is Sister Sister by Eric Jerome Dickey. This is a reread for me, but I read this for the first time when I was like 10 or something, so like 10 years ago. And this is about 3 black women, living in Los Angeles, I believe. And it's about them and their various complicated, problematic relationships that they have, and them trying to find healthy love, with men, like romantic love, but also with each other. And, 2 of them are sisters, Inda and Valerie. I'm really proud that I remember their names because I read this like almost a month ago because it's late. And they befriend this girl named Chiquita, and I remember liking it when I was younger, but there was just very few things that I remembered from the first time I read it that I am proud after 10 years of remembering that much detail. But like, I love it. You follow each chapter kind of alternates depending on like where the story is between the 3 ladies' points of view. I love Eric Jerome Dickey. He's one of my favorite contemporary writers. And I liked Valerie. She is in a failing marriage where she's trying to like be affectionate with her husband and he just ignores her and treats her like crap. Then Chiquita, she's in a abusive relationship where the opening scene for her is her hiding in the bathroom, telling her boyfriend to leave because he hit her. And then with Inda, it's kind of her dealing with a cheating boyfriend, and they kind of all have their problematic relationships, and it's them trying to find men that can treat them right, but also trying to find themselves, trying to find friendships and stronger bonds with women. It is really fun. It's kind of ridiculous with its kind of trying to be like, if you've read even just some of the Cheetah Girls novels, where it's kind of ridiculous in its language like that, it's kind of like that, but if they were all grown up. It is more mature, so I would say keep that in discretion if you want to pick this up. But I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. It is still one of my favorite books. It's probably more of like a 4.5. But I docked half a star because it just, the language was kind of felt like weird. But a major half a star, and maybe a majority of the reason that I docked the full star, is because there is this scene where one of the characters, she is going on a date with this guy, and they're like at the theater, and they see this female couple walk in, and I was excited when that whole thing started because the very first book that I read by Eric Jerome Dickey is focused on this bisexual woman and all of that stuff, so I thought that it was the couple from that book making a cameo in this book, and I guess technically it could still very well be, but the whole conversation that takes place between one of these girls and the guy she's on the date with as they're watching these two women felt very offensive and homophobic, and it made me very uncomfortable, and I feel like if that scene wasn't in there, it would be a solid 4.5 out of 5 stars. So, yes, but I still love this. It's still a freaking amazing book, and pick it up. Next, I believe I only gave this a 4 out of 5 stars the first time I read it. It's not in order, this list, at all. Yes, this one is a 4 out of 5 stars. This is a manga, and this is The World's Greatest First Love, The Case of Ritsu Onodera. Probably pronounced the name terribly. By this person. I don't want to butcher that name, and I'm not good at reading cursive, so we're just gonna show that. This is a yaoi mature manga about these two men who, like, fall in love. It's about this guy named Ritsu who, goes and he starts working at this, publishing company because he was working at a different publishing company that his family owned, but he wanted to kind of feel like he got a job on his own through his talent and not because he had connections and stuff. So he goes to work at this new publishing company, and instead of putting him in publishing books, they put him in the, like, manga department for publishing manga. And I've always wanted to read Bakuman because it's about publishing manga, and I always thought it'd be interesting and meta to read something like a manga that's about publishing manga. So I like that I got that with this, and you see, like, the whole process, and you learn a lot of things, and they kind of teach you the language and what it means and how the process goes. But while he's there, he finds out that his new boss is actually his ex-boyfriend from high school. And they ended in really bad terms, and they're both very, like, bitter, angry people based off of how their relationship ended in high school, and it's still precious. It is, you know, pretty mature. This first volume, only has, like, 1 or 2 pages of explicit content, so you can very much easily skip that, and it will not affect your, reading the story at all. This is just precious, and so gay, and so I love it. This first volume was a good start. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. It's just since then I've read more and I'm officially obsessed with the series. But yes, definitely recommend. It is currently, aside from Death Note, my favorite manga now. So, yes. Next. Again, this is not in order of how I read them. It is in order of size, because that's how I had it stacked. I have Milk and Honey by Rupi Kaur. This is probably the most overrated poetry book in existence. Not necessarily in that the hype is not valid, but that everybody has heard of this. Because I highly enjoyed this. I gave this a 5 out of 5 stars, and I was surprised at how much I was in love with this. I tabbed the crap out of it. And it is just a fantastic book, and it has illustrations, and it has I get why people don't like modern poetry because it seems kind of simple, but I just thought that there was so much about, like, loving yourself as a person and about depression that felt so in the mind of somebody who's been depressed, and you can tell that she was feeling all of this, and that she has firsthand accounts of everything that was in this book, and it was really good. I get why it's not for everyone. Like, if I heard somebody be like, oh, I hate this, I would completely understand that. Not like with certain books of mine that I love, and I get really offended when people talk crap about it, but it was definitely for me. So, there's that. Next, I have Read Bottom Up by Neil Shaw and Skye Catham. And this, I actually really like this. I think I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. And this is a book told completely like in emails. And hang on, I'm trying to find like a good thing displays that. So it's a very quick read. I think I read it in like a day or two. And I had always been intrigued by the cover because I like the art. It's really cute. And it felt like the most real people that I've read about. And I guess it's because since it's an email format, it's completely unfiltered. Like, not when you're inside somebody's head and you think that it kind of be pretentious to think or talk a certain way. It's like you're not being forced to make your opinions. It's not like, oh, you're staring at the love interest through the main protagonist's eyes, so it kind of affects how you see them, and of course they're going to be romanticized in your head because they're romanticized in their head and all that stuff. This one was just, it felt so authentic. If you don't like the person, it's because you're seeing them as they are, as they would naturally talk to their best friends and stuff. And while now that I've had some time to sit with it, I would like to reread it to know if I liked it as much as I did, but I just feel like sitting with these characters and listening to like all 4 of the main characters, the 2 main people who are in this relationship, and then their 2 best friends that they constantly talk to, it felt so real and it felt so relevant. And even though this is like in emails, it's not like in text or anything, even though there is occasionally text, it feels so like relevant to today. It feels like this is exactly how dating would play out in real life today. And I give it a 4 out of 5 stars. It wasn't the best contemporary I ever read, but it was definitely very good and something I would recommend. Next here, I have an arc. And I'm excited that I finally read an arc this year, because I was reading them like crazy last year, and then I feel like I kind of fell off with that, and I want to kind of get back to that this year. But this is #PrettyBoyMustDie by Kimberly Reed. This also has a black main protagonist, and I was so excited because I did not even know about that going in. This is kind of marketed as the Alex from Target thing that went viral, but if Alex from Target was a CIA agent. And it was kind of a hot mess, and it was very cheesy and campy, but I really loved it. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. This would definitely be an easily solid 5 out of 5 stars, but the second half of the book really kind of became too chaotic and too all over the place, and I feel like if it had an extra like 50 pages or so to kind of sort itself out, maybe it would be better. Then again, this is an arc. It could have gotten more linear and made more sense. I did not care for the main love interest at all. I don't feel like she really added much to the story. And the thing that I loved about this book, though, is that the main character, which I'm failing on his name right now, I know Peter, I think, is his fake name, and then he has, like, his real name. But he has this best friend who is called Bunker because he kind of is like Kimmy Schmidt from the TV show, and he lived a majority of his life in a bunker because his father believed that the world was going to end, and now he's kind of exposed to public school now and stuff. And he does lots of pop culture references from the past and stuff because he's basically Kimmy Schmidt, but in like a burly teenage boy body. And their friendship was probably one of my all-time favorite friendships I've ever read in a YA book. Or like just in a book in general, because I don't know if I can think of any adult books right now that have like legit friendships. Between 2 guys, usually it's hard for me, because I have a bad problem with shipping stuff, to kind of see a close friendship and not immediately ship it. And this, I did not ship it at all. I just thought that it was one of the most perfect kind of friendships that I've ever read. And I feel like the friendship alone is what gave it the solid 4 stars. But it also reminded me a lot of, I think it's like the 1980s slash early 1990s. I don't know, somewhere around that time period. There was a movie that was released called Toy Soldiers about this boy who, terrorists come and take over his school, and it's kind of like a private school. And it's just that constant, like, kind of like your stomach is in a clench because you don't know what's going to happen, because it's a very anxiety-induced situation to be in. Like, imagine your school being taken over by terrorists, and that is basically what this entire book is. Like, the first, like, beginning is the setup, but then, this girl takes a picture of this guy. It goes viral. People have been looking for him, and his school gets taken over by terrorists, and it's just really good. I have, like an occasional amount of tabs, but they are all tabbed moments that focus on the friendship in this, and I really liked it. There are certain aspects where I can see, because I've seen that on Goodreads it kind of doesn't have the best reviews, and that's another one where I get it. It's not for everyone. But if you want something campy and kind of fun, and that's very spy, like, thrillerish, but in a YA way, would say recommend that. Next here, I have a comic graphic novel thing, and this is Sin City Volume 2 by Frank Miller. I gave this a 2 out of 5 stars. Last year I read Volume 1 in February, so I wanted to continue the pattern and read Volume 2 this February. Volume 1 was one of the best things I read last year, not even just in terms of comics, but in terms of everything that I read. Sin City was incredible, and so I was kind of disappointed by this one. I feel like if I read it on its own and it wasn't a Sin City title, I'd probably give it like a solid 3.5. But, we're following a different character. We're not following Marv anymore, and it's just this guy who literally was doing so much. Well, it's gonna sound contradictory, because I was gonna say he's doing so much crap for this woman, which is what the first one is, but it's this woman who is alive, and she is basically using and manipulating this guy, and he is just letting her walk all over him, and it is so annoying, and he was such a little bitch. And I couldn't care for it. I love the aesthetic of it. I love Frank Miller's, like, writing style, and his art style. He was fantastic. I just didn't care for the main character so much that I feel like it affected my enjoyment of the story. I didn't care for the main romance. The main 2 people we focus on, the main guy and the main female that he's doing all this crap for, she was so manipulative. He was such an asshole. I just didn't. I'm going to continue with the series because I still like the whole setting of Sin City. I love the art. I love the writing style. And I hear that in later volumes, Marv comes back, and he is just my baby, my love forever. So, another thing, I didn't think he was going to be in this at all, Marv, and he was. And his treatment in this also made me very uncomfortable. The guy, the main character, is very close-minded and stuff, and I can't. So I was really disappointed by that one. And then the last thing that I read, I gave a 4 out of 5 stars to, and it is Husbands by Brad Bell and Jane Epinson. This, I also read for Contemporary-thon, and if you watch that video, I found out that the synopsis that I gave when I was talking about how I planned on reading this is not it at all. The TV show of Husbands is about these 2 guys who go to, like, Vegas, get drunk, wake up, they realize they're married, and they're both, like, gay, so it's fine. But, like, they don't want to get divorced because gay marriage was just legalized, and they don't want to already give it a bad rep by being, like, one of the first ever divorces. So they try to make it work. This comic is, them getting a wedding gift of this, like, weird old book, and the book, when they open it, transports them into different worlds and different dimensions. And the thing that I love, like, the thing where 2 people are so destined to be together that in AUs and all these things, they will end up together. And that was basically what this is. There's a sci-fi story that's, like, them when they're aliens. There's a fantasy story. There's, like, medieval times. There's a Sherlock story, an Archie story. And all of the art styles change for each story. and it was just so charming. It wasn't the best thing ever because the first story I wasn't that crazy about, and it is kind of like an anthology because each of these different worlds that they enter is a different story. But towards the end, I realized that all of the different plot points, like a big issue that they had in each story, was a big issue that you will have as a married couple, like a metaphor for it. And once I realized that, I was like, oh, this is so brilliant, and all that stuff. And Neil Gaiman blurbed it, and it's really good. And I feel like I would enjoy it more if I was a fan of the show already, because then I would already be kind of aware of the character quirks that they had in each story, because they are a different person in every story, so it's not like I already was used to them, if that makes sense. So I didn't necessarily connect with the characters, but I connected to how they plugged into the plot. But I do want to watch the show now, because I did really enjoy this. And you know, if you want some more comics out there in the world that have gaming characters, that is definitely one to pick up. This video ended up being so much longer than I wanted it to be. But if you liked this, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you'd like to see more of my face and my books / reading material. Bye.